everybody, welcome back to your flight Aura 005. Today our destination will be Redditville. Please fasten those seatbelts tightly because today it's gonna be a bumpy ride. My name is Aura and I'll be taking care of you on this flight today. So please sit back, relax and enjoy the flight. Anybody else love some Reddit drama? I love Reddit drama. This comes from Petty Revenge. I got an obnoxious passenger fired. The tea is piping hot. This is a long one, but it was the best revenge story of my life so far. I'm a South African living in Japan and took my Japanese wife to meet my parents and have a honeymoon in South Africa. On the first of 3 flights back to Japan was from Joburg to Qatar. We take our seats and get settled in. I noticed that a lot of the passengers around us were wearing the same t-shirts, some kind of pharmaceutical company. As soon as we get settled in, I noticed that a woman and 2 men sat behind us were also employees of this company. As soon as they get settled in, I noticed that she, let's call her Brandy, was quite chatty, loud, and a bit obnoxious. But I'm a nervous flyer, so at the time I was more worried about the takeoff than her. So I put my AirPods on and whoosh. We take off for our 8-hour flight to Qatar. As soon as the seatbelt sign switched off, Brandy started ordering brandy and cokes for herself and her 2 co-workers. As each drink came, Brandy's voice got louder and more obnoxious. One of the most annoying things on a flight is a passenger being so loud. That annoys me so much. After drink number 6, the topic of her conversation turned into relationships. By this time, half the cabin could hear their conversation about how she disapproves of interracial relationships. Ma'am. Even I could hear her through the guttural screams and the face-melting guitar riffs of Meshuggah blasting through my earpods. Then it happened. A nice woman sitting on 4 seats to her left quite loudly says, "Ma'am, could you please quiet down? You're a bit loud and I'm trying to get some sleep." I heard it too. So I paused the song and took out my left earpod to excitedly eavesdrop. That is so true. You know, if there is some kind of drama happening in the cabin, I want a piece of that tea. I'm taking my earpods up, I'm taking my headset off, and I'm tuning in to whatever that's happening. Brandy was not happy. She says, "Excuse me, this is a nighttime flight. Haven't you heard of earplugs?" Okay. And then jumps straight back into her conversation. The tension in the air immediately changed. In that moment, all the people who heard the interaction caught eyes with each other, and we all knew this flight was about to get interesting. About 20 minutes later, a flight attendant comes and politely asks Brandy to quiet down a bit. It is true, because I was kind of wondering if she was being so loud, why haven't the flight attendants already said something? Because that is what we do usually. If a passenger is being so loud in the cabin and inconsiderate of the other people, especially on a night flight, even before somebody complains, the normal thing to do is go and tell that person who's being loud to just, quiet it down a little bit. So yeah, I'm glad the flight attendant said something to her. She begrudgingly She begrudgingly agrees, orders another round and quiets down. But it only takes Brandy about 30 minutes to get all the way back up to volume louder than the jet engines roaring outside the windows. So by this point, this lady has had at least 6 drinks. And her voice is getting loud and she's disrupting the other passengers. So trust me when I say she is on the radar of the flight attendants. They're probably discussing about what next to do. Then another Chinese woman from the other side of the cabin gets up and walks to where Brandy is sitting, and in her best attempt at English says, "Please be quiet. My child keeps waking up because of you." Brandy looks up and, "You should not," asks this Chinese woman in a very mispronounced Chinese. "Can you speak Chinese?" I'm fluent in Chinese, so I could understand what she was trying to say, and just kept repeating it until the frustrated Chinese woman went back to her seat. "Ma'am, you're being quite rude, aren't you?" By this time, both flight attendants for our cabin were very much aware of Brandy's sassy nature and decided to close the bar for the whole cabin, which pissed me off because I was hoping to enjoy a few more whiskeys before we landed. I've never heard of the bar being closed for a whole cabin. I don't know what this airline is, and I don't know what their procedure is. But the procedure is that if a person is getting too intoxicated and causing a ruckus, you can deny alcohol to that person. You just deny it to that person. There are steps that we as flight attendants have been taught to first monitor, assess, and then in a last case scenario, deny the alcohol. Yeah, but this is normal for every airline. They teach their flight attendants on how to manage a situation like this. A few minutes later, I hear sounds of shuffling, then plastic, and then a faint sound of what sounds like a cap of a glass bottle being cracked open. Then the sound of liquid being poured into cups. Yep, Brandy had opened her bottle of duty-free brandy she bought at the airport, and once again their conversation began to crescendo. Okay, so she cracked open her own bottle of brandy. Now, in airlines, it is not allowed for you to consume your own personal alcohol, even if it is just alcohol that you bought at the duty free. The reason behind this is that now the flight attendants cannot monitor how much alcohol you are consuming. Because when we as flight attendants give you alcohol, we are kind of mentally keeping track of how many drinks you are having. And according to that, we can kind of assess, oh, is this person still okay? If they're still okay, we can continue to give you alcohol. Or if they're not okay, are they being disruptive now? Are they bothering the other people around them? Are they being too loud? Are they ignoring the flight attendant's instructions? And accordingly, we can now start, delaying alcohol service a bit. We have different tactics. Basically, we have different tactics of how to handle this person who is now constantly drinking alcohol. And then ultimately, as a last resort, like I said before, we would deny alcohol to that one person. Now, when you crack a bottle of your own alcohol and start consuming it, we have no way of tracking how much you're drinking anymore. And you can very quickly get super intoxicated, and the situation can go out of hand very quickly. That is why on all flights, you cannot consume your own alcohol. If we see a passenger consuming their own alcohol, we will have to confiscate that bottle until we land. Because we can't just let you keep the bottle, because you might just keep on drinking secretly. Okay, let's continue. Where was I? Now, the whole time I had been spectating the brandy situation, I wasn't really paying attention to my wife, who I assumed was sleeping next to me. I then saw my wife pull one of her earpods out turned to try and get a look at Brandy through the crack in the seat and then look at me with a face I rarely seen my wife make. It was a face of pure rage and frustration. Like, no wonder, it's an 8-hour flight and somebody's uncontrollably yapping behind you super loudly and you're just trying to sleep. I snapped. Now, usually I'm not the kind of person who likes to cause a scene, but I decided that I'm not going to let this asshole of a woman ruin my wife's flight. Oh, what a nice husband. So, like a crazy person, I stood up and announced loud enough that the entire cabin turned to hear me. Excuse me, everybody. Can I please have all of your attention? By a show of hands, who of you would like these people to shut the fuck up? About 30 passengers all around us raised their hands. I then turn to Brandy and just point and say, "Look, understand? Shut up." I sat back down to the sound of applause from all the passengers that were raising their hands. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to clap on planes. Obviously, we saw this before in a video. Like, people like to clap when planes land. They do that a lot. And on a rare occasion like this, on a flight, yes, I have noticed people to applaud. So I don't think it's that uncommon. Yeah. My wife was shocked that I did that. But I told her that I did it because I could see that Brandy was beginning to bother you too. She gave me a hug, and the flight attendant that saw what I did brought my cup of Coke, but slipped me 2 of those little bottles of whiskey.
さあさあグレイ様、お一つどうぞ。
Yeah, I can imagine that happening. I can actually imagine that happening. However, I am a little puzzled as to why the flight attendants didn't try to intervene a little bit more, as in tell the Brandy lady to quiet down. Like, you tell them once, if they don't do it, you have to kind of keep reminding them again and again. Maybe they just didn't want to deal with a drunk passenger. Maybe the flight attendants they were like, we cannot bother with this drunk Brandy lady. Maybe that's why. Anyway, thankfully, Brandy and the gang then passed out and were quiet for the rest of the flight. So my wife and I could relax. But Brandy wasn't finished. And now she had a new target. Me. On our descent, Brandy awakes and then decides that she wants to play some cards on the entertainment screen attached to the back of my seat, trying her best to hit the buttons hard enough to make my seat move.
わざとだろお前
Petty. I teach kids for a living, so I know that she's behaving like an angry toddler, exactly, trying to get a raise out of me. So I ignore her. We land. The plane taxis off the runway, and everyone starts getting up to get off the plane. As soon as I get up and she sees my wife and she starts repeatedly insulting me about my weight and how I married an Asian woman because I can't get a real South African woman. Blah, blah, blah. High school bully level bullscut. I just smile and nod my head at everything she was saying and exit the plane. Finally, Brandy and her co-workers walk off, and my wife and I find a nice cafe to have a coffee and chill and stretch for a bit before we make our way to the next boarding gate for our second flight to Malaysia. We eventually get to the gate, and lo and behold, guess who's flying to Malaysia? Uh-oh. That's right, it's Brandy. She's standing by the gate window taking selfies and doesn't notice me. I find an empty seat next to a guy wearing the same pharmaceutical company t-shirt and say, "Excuse me, sir, that woman over there with the blonde hair taking selfies. What's her name?" He asks me why, and I say that she looks like someone I used to go to high school with, but I wasn't sure and I didn't want to make an ass of myself asking her directly. He tells me and I say, "Oh, that's not her, sorry." I thank him, and for the remainder of the wait at the gate, I log into the airport Wi-Fi, found the company's Facebook page and website, and sent a detailed recount of Brandy's behavior, being sure to include all the colorful things she was talking about with her co-workers.
リベンジの時が来たよね。
Now that's the tea. Now that's why you should be careful of what you say. Nowadays, people have access. People have internet. When you do something naughty, people can complain to your boss quite easily. That's why you gotta be careful. The next 2 flights back to Japan were uneventful and got home safe and sound. 2 weeks later, I get a reply from the CEO asking me for my number, as he would like to talk to me about what happened. The CEO himself? Whoa. Jeez, whoa, okay. Damn. Either the company's really small or this lady has caused problems to them before as well. Wow. He calls me and profusely apologizes for what Brandy put us through. Turns out that by the time Brandy landed in Malaysia, the CEO had seen my message, changed her return flight back to South Africa for the very next day, and then fired her at arrivals in JNB airport when she got back. That was some swift action. Now, there was some buzz in Reddit that this was kind of a fake story. However, I don't not believe what happened in this story. Pretty much a lot of it is very believable. But this is the thing that gets me a little bit, like the CEO himself would get involved is like, that's kind of rare. Like that doesn't really happen. You know, there's relevant departments to handle those things. I bought a bottle of brandy and Coke on my way home from work that day to celebrate with my lovely wife. That was a crazy story. That's a crazy story. I mean, yes, I can see a lot of the things on this story happening. I mean, we've all heard of instances where an employee is behaving really rudely or causing ruckuses, and then people have messaged their companies that they work in and they get fired for their behavior. We've seen that happen. The only part is that the CEO himself got involved like that. Maybe that's just how they do things. We never know. Anyway, another intoxicated passenger story. I've told it before. We do not want to get intoxicated on flights. That is a bad idea. I know you want to make your tickets worth, your money's worth by drinking the alcohol on the flight, but come on. Do you really want to, make a fuss, cause drama, and humiliate yourself like that? No. And on a flight, there's a good chance that the airline might ban you from flying. So that was a spicy story. It was, wasn't it? It's a spicy story, and I do like Reddit stories. Please do tell me if you find the Reddit stories quite entertaining. I for sure do. I for sure do. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining with me. Okay? Please subscribe, and I'll see you later. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks for flying with us.